So this week's parsha is Parshas Terumah, and this week's parsha is the first parsha of the next 5 weeks. In a row, we're going to be talking about the details of how the Mishkan was made. The Mishkan was the temporary temple that we made on the way in the desert. And for the next 5 weeks consecutively, every single week, we're going to be discussing the different details, how we built it, and so on and so forth, different details about it. Something that my teachers told me for many years, learning growing up, was that one of the things, we know that Torah is compared to many things. It can be compared to water. Water is life. Another thing that I was taught, and I remember clearly, was that it could be like an onion. What does that mean? Torah is like an onion?
You can
peel it, right? So you can peel layer after layer. You can peel an onion, and every single time you're going to get more and more and more and more.
But it's sour inside. Maybe
the Torah is a sweet onion. So you can continue peeling it, and you'll get more and more and more. So there's different ways. The Rebbe has many different siches and talks on the Parsha. One of my personal favorites, it's called a Rashi Sicha, where the Rebbe will take, we know we have the Chumash, and then under there, the main commentary is the Rashi. And normally it's a very simple, just explanation on what's going on, and Rashi explains it to us, right? Let's say there's something that we might have a little question, Rashi will give us very simply. So in the theme of an onion, the Rebbe will show, let's say, a simple Rashi, and the Rebbe will give a simple question, and the Rebbe will answer it. And then the Rebbe will dissect it and take it down another layer and just go deeper and deeper into one aspect. So instead of going through the entire Parsha and finding a question here, we'll stick to one little thing and we'll get deeper and deeper into it. So that I picked, or my rabbi told me to learn, is if we look inside the Parsha, on the 5th pasuk, so we start off the Parsha, it says, Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe Leimer, Hashem said to Moshe saying, Daber b'nei Yisrael, speak to the Jews, Vayikchu li Terumah, and they should take for me a donation. Me'eis kol ish, from every single person, Asher yidvenu liba, whatever his heart desires, from every single person, whatever he decides to give, tikchu es terumah, they should take for me a terumah. And then the Torah goes on and it says they should take for me gold, they should take for me silver, they should take for me copper, they should take for me all different sort of things. There's a whole list of what is needed to build a temple. And in the 5th one, it goes like this. Hashem says that what we're going to need skins, like leather skins from a ram that are dyed red. And the skins of an animal that's no longer here. It's an extinct animal that existed back then. And the last part it says, V'atzei shittim. Atzei shittim is a type of wood. I think it's pronounced akaisha in English.
Akatsa.
There we go.
Which is the highest form of DMT is in that.
So it says specifically, that's the wood. We needed that wood. So if we look into Rashi, Rashi explains, Rashi says, V'atzei shittim, and this akaisha wood, Uma'ayin hayu lahem bamidbar. At this point, where are the Jews? The Jews are already inside of the desert, right? We're leaving Egypt and we're already inside the desert. We're traveling. We've been there for about a year. Rashi asks, where are they getting all this wood from? We're in the middle of a desert. There's no living organisms. There's not like trees and forests and plants. Where did they get all this wood from? So Rashi continues and he answers, from where did they get this wood from? Pirush Rabbi Tanchuma. Rashi very specifically, normally when Rashi will bring down a source, he'll say and he'll quote it from here, or he'll quote the answer and at the end he'll say, but here he very specifically, he writes it differently to show us Rabbi Tanchuma's explanation. What's this explanation from Rabbi Tanchuma? Yaakov Avinu tzafa beruach hakodesh. Yaakov Avinu, before he came down to Mitzrayim, right? Yaakov was in Eretz Yisrael and Yosef told him to come down here. So before he came down to Egypt, he had a prophecy. And in his prophecy, what did he see? He saw that the Jews are going to be inside of the desert, and they're going to have to build a temple, and they're going to need wood. So what did he do? When he came down to Egypt, he brought with him from Israel, specifically from Israel, he brought with him these trees, and he planted them. And what happened after that? So Sha'asidon Yisrael of Neis Mishkan Bamidbar, he saw that they were going to build this, the Mishkan, the tabernacle, the temporary temple inside of the desert. He brought down these trees and he planted them there. And he commanded his children, that he commanded them that before they were to leave Mitzrayim, that they should take these trees with him. So
they were running from Mitzrayim with the trees.
Exactly. So they ran with Mitzrayim with all these trees. You're good. You're skipping ahead over here. So they're running with Mitzrayim with all these big trees, and it was passed down generation to generation before he passed away, because in between Yaakov passing away and actually leaving was 210 years of slavery, right? So it was passed down. He told his children, and they told their children, who told their children, when the time comes that we're ready to leave this exile, to take these trees with us. right? So we start off with a very simple
The
question.
trees meanwhile grew.
Yeah. And so we start off, yeah.
So they planted the trees before they left?
Yeah, so Yaakov planted it 200 and technically 200, I believe, in 27 years. So Yaakov came prior to leaving Egypt. So Yaakov brought it to Egypt from Israel. He planted them. Yaakov lived for 17 years inside of Egypt. Then he passed away. Then there's 210 years of slavery. And through all those years, it was passed down generation to generation, according to Rabbi Tanchumah's explanation, that generation to generation, they were told, when the time comes and we're ready to leave, make sure to take these trees with us. We're going to need them.
Just
We're
like
going to need them.
Just like to get his bones. Like,
Yeah, so we're going to need them to build the Mishkan.
So they weren't too far from the Egypt border.
What do you mean?
So they weren't too far.
No,
from
they were
Egypt border.
traveling for almost a year by now. They were just dragging it with them, right? So we start off with a very simple question, and then we have a very simple answer. So the Rebbe is going to continue on there, and then we're going to ask another question like this. This is the form it goes. We're going to peel one layer at a time. So after we peel this first layer, simple question, simple answer, the Rebbe asks, why specifically did Rashi choose this explanation? There's other explanations. We said earlier that he very clearly wrote that it's Rabbi Tanchumah's explanation, right? That he specified who it's from, and he wrote it differently so we know that it's from him. And why did he choose this explanation? There's other explanations that other rabbis bring down. There's an explanation that when they were on their way traveling, they saw some other nations, they saw some other people, and they went, hey, I see you have trees, and they bought them off of them, right? They see these people, you guys have them, let me buy them off of you. And they bought them off of them, and they took them. That's how they had it. It wasn't all the way because Yaakov. That's one explanation. There's another explanation brought down that a miracle happened when Har Sinai and the mountain grew, and with all the flowers and everything, right next to it, there was a full forest of these exact trees that they needed, and that's where they got them. They went there, and they cut them down, and they took them. But Rashi doesn't choose this explanation that they bought it or that they cut it down from this miracle of forest that grew. Rashi chooses this very specific explanation, which is not even written in the Torah. It's a story that's passed down generation to generation. And he chooses this story as the one that we're going to use. That he says that this is the explanation that makes sense. So first off, why is this? Why do we choose this explanation specifically? What's so special about this explanation that Rashi's choosing this one? And why does he also very specifically point out whose explanation it is? So it's Rabbi Tanchumah's explanation, and why do we choose this explanation over every other explanation? So that's now our second layer. So the Rebbe is going to answer the question like this. If we look into the beginning of the parsha, on the first line we said, by Dabar Hashem al Moshe Leimer, Hashem spoke to Moses and he said what? Dabar al Bnei Yisrael, speak to the children of Israel, vayikchu li Terumah, and they should take for me a donation. Whatever each person desires to give, tikku as terumasi, they should take for me a donation. Anyone see what's off about this? The wording is very strange, right? Why not say they should give me a donation, or they should?
I noticed from the very beginning, but I thought maybe that's specifics of English translation.
No.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting wording. They should take for me a donation. It should say they should bring me a donation, or they should give to me a donation. Why are we saying they should take for me a donation?
Because God gives them, already it's given from God, so you return it back. No. It's not God giving the donation.
Oh, you're partially there. So the Rebbe explains like this. The wording is very strange, right? Take, it should be give or bring. It doesn't make sense. So now we have two questions. We have our original question of why this commentary, and now we have a second question of why this language. This language is a very weird language. It doesn't fit here. And the Rebbe is going to bring down the answer to why this language, and it's going to answer both questions at the same time. And the answer goes like this. If we look later on, or even not that much further, inside of the Rashi, when it talks about, actually on the first Rashi, when it talks about they take, Rashi says, what does it mean by the donation that they're taking? Hafrasha, it means something that they set aside. What does it mean that they set aside? It means that, let's say we're talking about money, that they should set aside some of their money as a contribution. So the Rebbe says we can imply from there, if they're setting aside, it means they already have it, right? They don't need to go out and go get it. They already have it inside of them. So they set it aside. So everything that they had piles of gold when they came out of Egypt. And they didn't have to go run after and go work for it or do something for it. They just gave it, right? They didn't have to just go work and give it. They just put it to the side and said, here, this is for the taking. This you should take. As opposed to, if we were to use the wording of to give or to bring, if I were to tell you, go bring me this, if you were to have it, very good, you can go bring it to me. But if you were not to have it, what would that imply? That you would have to go out now and go find a way to go get it, right? If I were to ask Zev over here for some Bitcoin, he might have the Bitcoin, right? He might not, I don't know. The cap says yes. So if I were to ask him, he's going to go and he's going to come, he'll be able to bring me the Bitcoin. If I were to ask somebody else who doesn't have any Bitcoin, then they're going to have to go out and go get the Bitcoin. Because I said, go give me this, go bring me this. So therefore, we didn't use the words, by showing that we used the words to take, it implied that they already had it, right? So they don't need to do anything for it. So now we know why we use the word to take, right? So that answers our question of why this language of taking and not giving, because it implied that they already had it on them, that they didn't need to go out and go get it. They had it on them and they put it to the side. And at the same time, that's going to answer our question of why specifically this explanation and not the other one. It's for the same exact logic. If we said that they had to go and cut down the trees, then what does that mean? They had to. It's a giving form, right? They had to go out. If I don't have it on you, you're going to have to go out. You're going to have to cut it down. You're going to have to bring it. If I'm going to say, go and buy it, if I don't have it, then I have to go out and I have to go and buy it and then bring it. But if I say the explanation that Rashi brought of Rabbi Tanchuma, which is that they already had it, right? Why did they have it? Because Yaakov Avinu had a prophecy 227 years before, and he made sure that they had it. So it works perfectly, right? They already had it on them, and therefore, when Hashem says to take it, they say, here, we already have it, take this, this is the donation. Right? So now we answered both of those questions.
But if they did not carry it, so that this wouldn't be a donation, a type of...
It would be a donation,
Still?
but we used a very specific language, right? We used the language of to take and not to give. If we were to use the word giving, it would imply that if you don't have it, you should go and get it.
Okay.
Right? So it could be you do have it and you'll give it, but it could be the next guy won't have it and he's going to have to go out, get it, and give it.
Right.
But we used a very specific language of that whatever I have, here, just take this aside, which shows that I already have it, and here, take it. So now we know why it's to take it, why that specific wording, because it shows that I already have it. And out of the three explanations that we mentioned, there's only one of them that would show that we already have it, right? Because one of them I'd have to go out and buy it from other nations. The other one I'd have to go out and cut down some trees to have it. And the one that we used was that we already have it. Why do we have it? Because Yaakov Avinu, all the way before, made sure that we had it with us.
And the reason for that was because those trees were not available in Egypt and on the way.
They were available in Egypt,
They
though.
were?
We're going to get to that. That's,
Okay.
that's the next layer of the onion.
Okay.
So, V'zeu Pirshas Rashi, this is the explanation of the question. Oh, so now we can understand the question of Rashi a little bit differently, right? So, our original question was what? Why?
Why take?
No. Where did they get these trees from?
Okay.
Right? That's the first question we had, right? We had a simple question, simple answer. Where did we get these trees from? Yaakov Avinu had a prophecy, he planted them. But that's on the fifth pasuk, right? That's on the fifth one. On the first one, we already explained that they had it in advance, right? Because we said the language of taking, which means that we didn't understand the question correctly. So we're going to go back, and the first question wasn't where did we get this wood from? We're in the middle of the desert. The question was, as you said earlier, someone mentioned earlier, is why did we have this wood with them, right? We're traveling in the desert right now, we're leaving. Who in their right mind decides that, oh, we're going to schlep with us all this wood? It makes zero sense, right? We're traveling in the desert, we're going on a journey. Hey, let's grab some wood with us.
Yeah, they ran away from the Paro and all that.
Yeah, they're running, they're going.
Running away with the...
Let's grab some wood with us. It makes zero sense, right? If you're traveling, if you're moving from California to Miami, why are you bringing with you just schlepping pounds and pounds and trees? It makes zero sense. So now we can understand the question a little bit differently. It's not where did they get this from? We're in the middle of the desert. It's why do they have this with them? And therefore, the answer would be the same answer is because Yaakov Avinu had a prophecy before that we're going to need it later on. Right? We're going to need it to build the Mishkan. Is everyone on the same page? We're good?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I was scared because in my mind when I was learning it for the first time, I was all over the place. So we say that it can't be, right? One more time, it can't be because where did they get such trees? It's just why are they bringing it? And so then we answer that it was through the prophecy. So then we're going to ask another question. This is what I meant by you peel an onion, you go back and forth, you just go deeper and deeper, right? So fine. We know now that they had to have the trees. And we also know because of the language of taking and not giving, that means they had to had it from way before, right? And so we say that Yaakov Avinu 227 years before, he planted it to make sure that we all had it. But the question's like this: if Yaakov Avinu knew that the Jews are going to need these wood, or they're going to need this wood, why did he have to bring specifically trees from Israel and then bring them and plant them and tell them in 210 years or whenever it is that date that you're going to go out, whenever that's going to happen, take these trees? If he knew in advance they're going to need these trees, he could have just told them, hey guys, listen to me. Before you guys leave, make sure to go buy.
No, but the only logical explanation, which you already said it's wrong, that in that country there were.
Okay,
then.
In that country they had. So why couldn't Yaakov just say, why does he have to go all the way, bring from Israel physical trees, come to Egypt, plant them, and say, when you guys leave, don't forget to take these trees with you. Just tell them, hey, before you guys go, buy it from somewhere else and make sure you have it with you. Or even if you want to go simpler without the whole buying explanation, they had these trees elsewhere. Why did he have to go 17 years before he passes away, bring them with him, just buy them when you get there and plant those ones? Right. Why do we have to bring specifically these trees? Why couldn't we buy from somewhere else? What was the process to that? So now we're left kind of with two questions, right? We said, why are we schlepping it? Which we answered because Yaakov Avinu said, but also, so fine, so we're bringing it because he said that, but like, why this way? We could buy it here earlier, or whatever it is.
Easier way.
Yeah, there's a much easier way. It doesn't make any sense. Like, for so much in advance to do something 200 years before, there's got to be a better way. So we try to answer by saying that Yaakov, when he had this prophecy, he must have known what? What did we say a moment before? We said that the language of taking, right? Which means that it has to be theirs. And he knew that it has to be theirs, which means that they couldn't buy it and they couldn't cut it down from some other thing on the way. So he knew that they had to plant it in advance. But at the same time, why didn't he just, as we said, our simpler question, he could have just brought it and planted it there in advance or bought it in advance. So that doesn't really work. The answer it's a good answer. It's a beautiful answer, actually. When I was learning it, I remembered my father, by Yom Kippur speech once, a couple years ago. I asked him for it. He printed me out the story. There was a story in 1944, towards the end of the war. There was like a Hasidic family, a religious family, who came from generations and generations of rabbis. And in 1944, it was a couple with three children, 3 boys. The father died of starvation, and he passed away. And the mother was getting very worried for her children. They came from a very special lineage of people, of rabbis, rabbi after rabbi, and she realized that with all the war and what's going on and the distractions, and you have Germans killing Jews, and you have the Soviets and Stalin killing Jews, and Jewish practice is not a practice that's being allowed right now. It's become very difficult, and she wanted her children to be able to grow up and be in a Jewish environment and to learn Torah and be in a school and to get all their upbringing. So she had her 3 kids, and she met a chassid who was going to Samarkand. And in Samarkand, it was a little bit further away from the war. Yeah, I was there for Pesach. I ran a Seder there. So in this place, there was further from the war. They had a Jewish community. Not necessarily the biggest, but they had a thriving Jewish community, and there they had a school. So she asked this chassid, she said, please take my 2 eldest children with you. Take them with you, because he had all the correct papers or whatever it is. She wasn't able to go. Take my 2 eldest kids with you, and this way they're able to learn. They're going to be in a Jewish environment. They're going to be able to learn. They're going to be able to grow up as Jews. So that's what she did. She sent the 2 kids away, and they went with this person, and they were living in Uzbekistan. A year goes by, and the younger son starts to get a bit older, and she starts to realize that it's time for him to go also, right? He's getting older. He also needs to learn, and she finds another chassid who happens to be going to Samarkand, and she says, take my son with you. I can't leave yet for whatever the reasons were, and he agreed. So when she's sending off her son, the son starts to cry and says, Mama, I don't want to leave you. He's a little boy, he doesn't want to go. And the mother told him, she said, son, I promise you that wherever you go, no matter what, I'm here with you. And I promise you that I'm going to come. You're going to see me and I'm going to come to you. So he goes on his way and he goes to live in Samarkand. A couple months later, however long the time it was, she's finally able to get out of Russia, wherever she was, and she takes a trip and she goes to Samarkand. And it's a rainy day, and as she gets out of the train, the first thing she sees is her son sitting there waiting for her.
The youngest one?
The youngest one. And the son runs over and they hug and they embrace and it's beautiful. But she asks him, she goes, how did you know I was coming? I didn't WhatsApp you. I didn't send you any message.
Yeah.
How did you know I was coming? And she said, you promised me. You promised that wherever I go, you're going to be with me. And you promised me that you're going to come back. So every single day, I come to the train station and I wait. Because you promised me, and a promise is a promise, and I know you're going to keep it. So the answer is along the same lines. We said in the beginning that the Rashi specifically mentions Rabbi Tanchuma, right? That normally he doesn't say it in this way. He doesn't state who it's by in such a very particular way. And the Rebbe brings down the answer that Tanchuma in Hebrew comes from the word of Tanchumin, which is Menachem, which means to comfort. And comforting has everything to do with why he brought this exact story that Yaakov went all the way back. He went to Eretz Yisrael and he brought these trees with him and he planted them and he told him to go. How does this fit? What's going on over here? So the Rebbe says at that time, where were the Jews? The Jews were in the worst exile possible. Yeah? We were in a terrible, terrible place. We were being beaten upon. We were being slaved. We were being beaten, everything. Up to the point that every single male son was being thrown into the river and being killed in front of their parents' eyes. And through all this hardship, what was the only thing keeping the Jews going? In Tanya, it says that every single Jew inside of his soul and his neshama, he has a flame. Yeah, he has a Jewish flame. And every single Jew instilled inside of him has a bitachon. He has a trust. He has a complete trust in Hashem, and he knows that Hashem is going to save him. And passed down generation to generation, as these Jews were inside of Egypt, they were told, V'anechi elech gam elech. Hashem says, wherever you go, I will go with you. She, just like the mother told her son, said, wherever you go, I'm going to go with you, and I will be there with you, and wherever you're going to go later, I'm going to be there with you no matter what. And I'm going to come to you, and you're going to see me. So what's the connection to our trees? That any single time that they were in exile, and they felt like the world's going to end, what they were able to do was kol meshach zman, anytime agos bereisim inayim, they were able to lift up their eyes, and with their own flesh and blood, it wasn't just a story passed down generation to generation. They were able to look up with their physical eyes, and they're able to see these trees that Yaakov Avinu brought all the way down from Israel. And they're going to know that generation to generation, it was told that wherever you go, I'm going with you. These trees are here with you, and you're going to take these trees. And when you're going to go back to the land where these trees came from. You're going to go back to this place and you're going to build a temple. And so it is a physical reminder that generation after generation, no matter what you're going through, that these trees, they would look up to them and they were to see, and it would instill in them comfort that Hashem is still with them, Hashem's going to be with them, and everything's going to be okay. So now we get a better understanding when we said that we switched our question, right? Originally, our question was, we're in the middle of the desert. How did they get these trees? And then we switched it, right? Because we understood that they already, from the word of taking, we understood that they already had these trees all along from before. So we don't need this to tell us because we already knew that. So rather our question means not how did they get these trees, but what were they doing exactly with these trees? Why are they dragging these trees along with them in the middle of the desert? It doesn't make any sense. And we answered because Yaakov Avinu had a prophecy. And he saw that we're going to need to build the Mishkan with these trees. And therefore we brought them along. So now we can understand the significance of the trees. The trees weren't just to build the Mishkan. It was to give us a message and instill comfort and hope inside every single one of the Jews. It was to tell us through all the worst things that you go through, when they were sitting there in slavery, what did they have with them? They had these trees to look up upon. And they knew that even in the worst of the worst, as bad as it can get, God, He's here with you. He was there with every single one of us. And not only that, these trees, where did they come from? They came from Eretz Yisrael. God gave us a promise. One day we're going to go back to Israel. We're going to go back and I'm going to be with you every step along the way. I will be there with you. And therefore, when they were traveling through the desert, they're going through a place where there's nothing. There's just emptiness. It's a desert. There's nothing there. There's scorpions, snakes, and that's it. In a bad, bad place. they looked at these trees that they were bringing along, and they knew God's with us here also. And then they built the Mishkan, and they finally built the first temple, even though it's temporary, and they knew Hashem is here with us, and we're still on our journey. We're going to Eretz Yisrael. We're going to Israel, and everything's going to be all right. And the Rebbe brings down that we know that it says that the Galus of Mitzrayim, the exile of Mitzrayim, is the source for all other exiles that Jews have ever had. So when we had the Babylonians and the Romans, all of them, the source is Mitzrayim. So whatever lessons that apply to Mitzrayim, we can learn for every single one of us now. So for example, now we're in an exile, even though we might feel comfortable and we might not know it. We're in an exile. We don't see God openly. We don't see Him every day. We don't feel Him every day. But Hashem is telling you that even in a place like this, even when you feel like everything is lost, the work is not going good, this is not going good, relationship's not going good, life's not going good, whatever it is, Hashem is telling you, look up, I'm here. I'm here with you in every step of the way. The Rebbe finishes off the Sikha and ends it by saying that just like in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of nothingness, the Midbar, the desert, there's nothing over there, the Jews went and they built themselves a temple. So too, every single one of us, it's our job to take nothingness, a desert, where there's nothing inside of a desert, nothing good. If anything, there's nothing plus bad. There's just the desert, which is emptiness, and then there's snakes, there's scorpions, there's just bad. It's nothingness and bad. So too, inside of our exile, where you might see that there's just nothingness. You don't see God openly. You don't see holiness openly. It's our job to go and to build a Mishkan, to build a place of holiness, and to bring Hashem into it. Another lesson which fits perfectly, the Rebbe mentions it in the end. So a concept that the Rebbe brings inside the end, it's a concept that I didn't really point in on because it's not like primarily discussed in this talk. But a very famous teaching of the Rebbe is inside of this parsha, a couple psukim later. It says, "V'shachanti b'saycham." Hashem says you're going to build a mishkan, you're going to build a tabernacle, a temporary temple. V'shachanti b'saycham, and I'm going to dwell in them. But the them in Hebrew, it's with the letter chaf, which means you, but plural. Like if I say you guys, right? It's a plural version of you. So the Rebbe goes and has a beautiful explanation and says, what does that mean? In you guys, it means inside of you, every single one of you. Hashem is telling every single Jew that inside every single one of you, inside of your own hearts, inside of your own souls, you have to open up and make a dwelling place for God. Start doing what he's talking about, and whatever it is, make yourself open and a dwelling place for Hashem. So that concludes. We bring everything together, where we see that we have our.
What was it in plural again?
It's in plural but it's in a version of you plural, right? With the letter chaf. So what does that mean? Why wouldn't Hashem just say, I'm going to build a temple and I'm going to dwell in it? It's a temple, it's a tabernacle, right? But instead he used the terminology of I'm going to dwell in you, a plural you. The Rebbe teaches what he meant by you plural is Hashem was talking to every single Jew. He said, I'm going to live in you, and I'm going to live in you, and I'm going to dwell in you, and I'm going to dwell in you. But that just doesn't happen on its own. We have to do it, right? We have to build it. Hashem said, build me a tabernacle, build me a mishkan, and I will dwell in you, plural. Which means every single one of us has the mission to make himself open to bringing Hashem in and dwelling inside of them. So that's how the Rebbe closes off the Sikha by saying that we have our original question of why were they bringing it? Why were they schlepping all this wood through inside of the desert? And we answered because Yaakov had a prophecy, and he knew that we're going to need this. But more than that, it was a sign of hope for us, yeah? And no matter where you go, Hashem's going to be with you. And in the very end of it, we're going to build a temple. And where are we going to build this temple? We're going to build it, this tabernacle, this mishkan, we're going to build it in the middle of nowhere. We're going to build it in the middle of the desert. Inside of the desert, there's just nothingness. Just like we are here in exile, there's nothingness. And it's our job that in every single one of us to bring down and to build within ourselves a mishkan. And the Rebbe finishes off by saying that if everyone goes and tries and brings down godliness into their lives, may we merit to the coming of the third and the final temple, the permanent temple, not just the temporary one, b'mheira mimenu mamish, which means speedily in our day, and Mashiach now.
Amen. Amen.